Hello and welcome to One Stop Co-op Shop, your one stop for board game news and reviews. Hold on to your pants, it's time for a special episode.
Welcome to One Stop Co-op Shop. Steve here with a couple of special guests, Rob.
Hello.
And Bairnt.
Hey Steve, thanks for having me.
Bairnt, you guys have heard before on the podcast. I don't believe you guys have heard about Rob. Rob is very active on our Slack. He goes by, well, currently Eerie Stottle because it's, Halloween theme.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So glad to have you on for the first time, Rob. And so I guess why the three of us are together is we're going to talk about Con of the Rings 2019 because all three of us attended it this year. And so we're talking about Con of the Rings 2019 because we all attended this con together. And then we'll probably also, in this conversation, talk a little bit about Lord of the Rings, the card game, because we all have very different experiences. I've played Lord of the Rings, the card game, for a number of years now, and I believe, Rob, you've done as well. And Bairnt is pretty new to it.
That is correct. I'm pretty much a brand new person at this game, but oh boy, I learned a lot.
And you decided to go a con that is dedicated to this game.
Yep, and it was a blast.
Cool. Well, I'm so glad to have this difference of experiences to talk about this convention. So we'll jump into that real quick, but before, let's talk about what everyone's up to. So, Bairnt, what's new with you?
Well, some big news that you guys have already announced. I've actually now partnered up with you guys on One Stop Co-op Shop. So Meet Me at the Table is now partnered with One Stop Co-op Shop. I'm throwing a huge campaign for Kingdom Death. And it's probably going to take, I would guess, 6 months to a year to get through. But we will have a blast going through it. Of course, all my stuff can also be found on my own channel as well. But just if you're interested in all this fun stuff coming out, just stay on One Stop Co-op Shop.
Hey, Rob, what have you been up to?
I convinced a friend who played Arkham Horror, the LCG, to try out Lord of the Rings with me, and he also came to the con, and we decided to start playing through the history of the game from the beginning. We just finished the first cycle. I'm really excited for Marvel Champions to come out here in a little over a week. I'm about to go on vacation to go see some family, and I'm about to start an RPG group of Tachyon Squadron, which is a Fate system game that I'm really excited for.
Very cool. Sounds fun. Let's jump into Con of the Rings 2019. This convention is specifically geared towards the Lord of the Rings living card game, and it is player created, meaning it's not officially sponsored, but players decided to go through all the work of getting the space at the Fantasy Flight Event Center and setting up this fun event. And this is the second year they've done it. And I was lucky enough to go to the first year, and I believe Rob and Bairnt, is this you guys first?
First year, though I backed it the first year that they started.
Oh, you backed but you didn't attend?
Yeah, I had something come up at the last minute that I wasn't able to attend for, but they were gracious enough to send me the swag.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yes, this was my first time. I had never been to a Lord of the Rings. Actually, I think at the time I probably hadn't even played the game yet.
Oh, and you signed up? That's amazing. Cool. Well, yeah, like I said, this is a big convention. It's probably like around, well, not a big convention. It's like around 100 plus people. Probably less than 150 at this point, I think.
That sounds about right, yeah, from what we saw.
But yeah, it's great because it's at the convention center. We got the whole room to ourselves, and everyone's there to play, this great game, and everyone likes the game, so it makes it really easy to talk to people, and everyone's real friendly. But anyway, let's just jump in. So for me specifically, I flew in on Thursday. The event was actually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I flew in early Thursday, and I got to meet up with Bairnt, which was awesome because he picked me up at the airport, went to his place, and we sat down and played a game that I haven't played before, was Madara.
Yes, you did. And you loved it. No.
It was actually pretty fun. I liked it a lot. Yeah, we played the first 2 scenarios, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct. It was just the first 2 intro scenarios they have. If anybody's ever played the game before, we did the first masked things for the actual campaign of the game, just to get a feet wet, see what it's like. But then I at least was able to show you at least some of the other stuff that unfolds as the game goes forward, like different kind of cards and the creation of characters and things.
Yeah, there's a ton of content in the game. It's crazy. So yeah, I was super happy to be able to actually play the game and also sit down at Bairnt's table. So I got to actually meet Bairnt at his table.
This is true. Oh, that was awesome. Yes, you did. We got to play Madara. It's still, right now, it's still my game of the year.
That's awesome. Rob, what did you do?
The first day...
did you come in Thursday or you came in later?
Oh, actually, no. I came on Friday.
Oh, okay.
My friend and I that came with me, we woke up at like 4 a.m., We live in northern Illinois, so the drive was a little over 5 hours, and we got there, not quite at the start of the con, but just a couple hours after the start. We met up with a couple people that we had met from Gen Con in the Cardboard of the Rings After Dark event that we had been talking to a little bit, and coordinating decks somewhat, like not really building together, but just general deck strength, and we just sat down, and as soon as we got there and immediately started playing and just played through the day.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you guys did probably more planning than we did. 'Cause I felt like we built decks, but we didn't really coordinate very much. So I think we were planning on coordinating a little bit more, like that evening, Thursday night evening, and maybe even Friday morning. But like, oh, there's other games, other things we want to do, so that kind of distracted us a little bit. But actually, we had a really funny thing happen where Bairnt and I were heading towards Colin's house, because Colin lives nearby too. And so we drive over there, and we're trying to navigate, and he's at his new house. We've not been there before. So we pull in the neighborhood, like, oh, you know what, I think it's around someplace. We get out of the car, and we go up to his front door, and we ring the front doorbell, and it's one of these Ring devices that got a camera on it, and so we're all, like, waving at the camera and being silly and all this fun stuff, and I'm like, he's not answering the door. It's kind of weird. And so I text him on my phone, ding dong, and pretty soon we look around, and Bairnt happens to notice, like, wait, is that Colin over at the other house down the street a little ways? Like, yep, it is.
It was fantastic.
So yeah, apparently his neighbor has a nice video of us acting like fools outside his door. So, but yeah, we did meet up with Colin, then headed to the con the next morning. But yeah, we sat down with our buddy Terrence. He was there with us. We had a table in the back, so with Bairnt was nearby with us and some other Austin Lord of the Rings players. The convention is set up so that all the players are trying to play through similar quests at the same time. You don't have to play the same quest at a time, but we can collectively try to meet these climatic moments. And once we beat the climatic moments, we unlock, quote unquote, more quests to play. I mean, you can do whatever you want, of course, but that's kind of what the theme of the convention is set to.
Right, the spirit of the con.
Correct. Thank you. And so this year, the theme was to play through the Agmar cycle and a little bit of Grey Havens. And so the Agmar cycle is this, like, spooky, haunted ghost setting where you are up in the... How do you describe this location? Up in the wilderness?
I can't actually think of where it takes place specifically.
I believe it's up where, like, the Rangers reside and protect the advancing evil from the north.
So interestingly, I hadn't played that cycle before coming to Con of the Rings.
Oh, it's your first time playing it. So what did you think?
That cycle, yeah.
What'd you think of the cycle?
Well, Karn Doom was super fun.
Yes. I think we'll get to that one. So just for listeners' knowledge, Karn Doom is widely regarded as the most difficult quest in the entire game. So that was one of those climactic moments. I think it was Saturday.
I liked it though. At the time of year that we're playing, and all of the quests seemed really focused on undead creatures, and it was all spooky and crypty, and it was super thematic. It felt really good.
What'd you think about that, Bairnt?
I really like the fact that I didn't know too much about it, so going there was like, okay, we're playing this quest. I'm like, okay. And so everything that came out was obviously new to me. I didn't exactly know how to react to stuff, but I thought it was really cool that they had that board that showed you what quests were going to be played, and then they had like achievements you could try, so we could be like, oh, hey, we can do this. But in order to get the super achievement, we have to not do this. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just not do that. And then you guys would laugh at me like, we're never going to make it if we try that. I'm like, okay, well, let's not. So I really enjoyed how all that was set up. And you could play whatever you wanted to, or else you could just kind of play what they had suggested. And I think we did a little bit of both, which was really good because I was still kind of learning. So it was fun to be able to learn on a couple of the easier ones, and then we started diving into some of those bigger ones.
And how many games would you have said you played before attending Con of the Rings?
That would be 2, Steve. 2. That'd be how many that was there.
You played 2 games of Lord of the Rings, and then decided to play a 3 almost full day event of playing that game over and over and over again.
It's one of my most played games now.
That's because it's the best game that exists.
Yeah, that'll do it. I do rack up a lot of plays at these cons, so.
Yeah, like I said, it was really cool to be able to learn a lot of stuff. I mean, I made sure to understand the game. I played one solo by myself, and then Terrence and I had kind of played online. At least he was able to understand how all the different phases worked. Even though you read the rules, sometimes it's a lot easier to see a game in action. So I didn't want to go there completely as a noob, not knowing how to play. So at least I had an idea of, and structure of the game. But everything was going to be new no matter what happened, which is what was really cool about this.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is the scenarios are pretty varied too, especially the later quests. I feel like they did a really good job making them feel distinct from each other.
I did do some of the competitive event, and I'm as far as board games go, I'm relatively new to solo and co-op games, and my history is largely X-wing competitive play,
Oh, sweet.
and I I stopped playing that when I had a kid, which is how I got into Lord of the Rings. I wouldn't have time to go to large competitive events anymore, but I still really wanted a game. It was my first time playing a solo game. I love, Lord of the Rings, the theme. I started playing Netrunner a little bit right before the game was officially canceled. Playing the competitive events of Lord of the Rings like really reminded me what I love about cooperative games. Just because, trying to build a competitive deck for like a tournament format is if you make the wrong meta call, you're kind of stuck, right, with that deck for the rest of the tournament. And if you're not having fun just because you're getting wrecked on the whole time, then that's it. So we played two competitive format quests and pretty much called it quits after that because we made terrible calls with our decks and we were there to have fun, right, and play this cooperative game that all of us loved so much.
Now, being a two-time actual player of this game, can you explain a little bit on how competitive version of Lord of the Rings works? Because I've obviously only ever played cooperative.
So competitive play is something that FFG has tried to have for this game for a long time, even since the beginning of the game. Because they didn't really know what to do as far as organized play communities were concerned. And originally, it was based on victory points and how much health you had and how much threat you had, etc. And it never really took off because the community mostly just kind of felt like if you win the quest, you win, right? And if you have fun, then you're having fun. Last year for Gen Con and the Fellowship event, FFG came up with these custom scenario quests where you could build the quest to your standard. There were deck building rules as far as like points involved. There's quick build rules to make it simpler, but essentially you can build these quests however way you want, and there's even different win cons in them. Like you could design your quest for threading out or for location lock or just straight up killing. And the idea is that you could do it in different ways, 1v1, 4v4, but kind of the accepted format is that you're a team of two and you build your scenario and then you hand it off and trade with another team of two, and then the group that wins the quest with fewer rounds is the winner, and then there's tiebreakers and so forth. In practice, what that really means is who can last longer, because I think even the people that were winning the tournaments were not necessarily beating the quests to full completion. But so that's kind of the competitive mode, and I love the idea of it, and I love the idea of making this something that competitive players could get into. I didn't love it for the con, but I really wish it was something that existed early on in the game's life, because it's been really popular and really like given organized play something to kind of rally behind. Well, kind of the beauty of the format is you can do so many things with it, right? You can build the quest to test a specific kind of player deck you want to play, or you can use it for organized competitive play or whatever, right?
Definitely.
It's just it was a really brilliant design choice, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's one of those options at the con, but like you said, I didn't play it at this con, and you don't have to play competitive if you don't want to, but yeah, it's definitely an option. And there's a lot of other events that we probably won't even mention because there's just a lot going on.
So let me get this straight. You just grab random like scenarios and just kind of stick them together, and this one way to do it. creating a random scenario, or do they actually have packs of random scenario card type things you can pull?
There are specifically 2 packs that are compatible with each other, and in typical FFG fashion, you have to buy 3 copies of each pack to get the full playset to do your your custom quest. And then they're doing the same thing this year, which was the Gen Con this year, and well, I say this year, but the next fellowship's not going to be out until May 2020. But those two are also going to be compatible with each other to build quests, but they're not compatible with the ones from last year. So the ones from last year, the 2 quests, are kind of following the first cycle's cards and themes, and then this year or next year's that are going to be compatible with each other are kind of following the cards and themes from the Dwaro Delph cycle.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you very much for all that education, because I honestly, that's kind of stuff I didn't really know too much about.
They don't make it easy.
So yeah, lots of events at Con of the Rings, but the big one that was everyone's looking forward to on Friday was the Siege of Anuminas. So what this is, it was a climatic epic mode for the game. So what FFG did, and they did it for another one. I think it's a Attack on Gold
Dol Guldur.
Dolgor. Yeah, and that was 1 year, and then they did it again for the Siege of Numenor, and it takes the 4-player version of Lord of the Rings and it expands it to 3 games of 4 players. So it's essentially a 12-player game at max player count. And what happens is all these groups, they play almost independently, but the results of how they're playing affect each other group at the table. And so all 12 people are working together to try to achieve this goal. And for the siege, it specifically is we are manning a castle. This enemy force, overwhelming enemy force, is coming to attack this fortress that we're behind. And so you have a group of people that are actually in the fort, a group of people outside the fort at the levee, and a group of people that are even further out. And so there are these big boss guys that emerge at the far ends outside the fort, and then the first group will have to try and manage this, and eventually they'll move into the levee part just outside the fort, and then they'll have to try and manage that same guy, and even further they'll go into the actual fort itself, and that's where they'll start damaging the city. And the city of Anuminas falls, everyone loses the game.
Yeah, so that was my first time playing that quest, and I have to say the epic multiplayer format, I had reservations about it, but it ended up being a blast.
Yeah, I love epic play in this. It was so much fun. I really like how the different groups interact. So one thing this quest does specifically is if you are able to do well enough and put enough progress on your quest card can then trigger abilities for the other teams. So for example, what Bairnt and I, we were in the levee one in the middle, and so we could actually buy fellow Dunedain, so fellow allies that would help or come to play for each other team. So we would have additional help when the big bad guys came down. And other people, they can like build barracks or walls, or they can heal other people, or have them draw more cards, or give more resources. So it's really interesting. Once you play through your round, you kind of pause for a second, everyone talks, and say, oh yeah, we're really struggling with getting our cards out. Okay, have another resource for a hero, and then go ahead and draw a card. And that gives that team a really big boost. So hopefully they can then help manage the situation better. What did you think of this play, Bairnt?
I thought actually it was really cool. Some of the stuff I enjoyed was the fact that, of course, like you said, you're playing all in as a group, but at the same time, you have to make sure that the other people are still faring okay. Like we were in the middle, so it's kind of neat to hear the 2 perspectives on both sides. We had one group that just seemed to be getting slaughtered by about everything that was coming at them. That was that first group, and eventually this like giant random amount of orcs just comes pouring out, and they go right down the line. And if the front group doesn't finish them off, they just keep on bouncing until you get to the end, and they just keep coming and coming and coming. And so we were lucky enough to kind of keep those at bay. The front group did a really good job of taking care of that, and then we were able to, at least if it did come to us, take care of it again. And it never really got too far down, if I remember right. But it was cool that all this stuff worked with each other. So, like you're saying, oh, I'll give a resource to this guy, have that guy draw a card. Does anybody need healing? Yeah, my guy's hurt. Okay, you can heal one. Okay, fantastic. So it's really kind of cool. How was it like on your end of this one, all the way at the end? Because I didn't really catch what was going on down there.
It was great. So we played with Colin and the friend that I brought with me, and we played these three decks together a couple times at the con. I was playing a Sentinel defense deck. My friend was playing a heavy attack deck, and Colin had a questing and support Noldor deck, and our decks just really sang together. And honestly, we weren't really struggling with the quest. Maybe a couple times, we had some good plays, but but I really liked the ability to kind of take what we are doing and affect the other board states. So we were playing the portion where we're defending the walls. It was really satisfying to get those extra fortifications to kind of boost everybody up earlier in the quest.
Yeah, I really like this format of play. It feels very different, and it really does seem to satisfy the epic label to it, because every time I've tried it, it's been epic. Even if we fail, it's been an epic failure too, so...
Yeah, it really delivered on the epic label.
If you guys want to know a little bit more about this epic play and how it works, Colin is crazy but awesome in that he's actually trying to play epic mode on the channel today, or as we speak. So he's got a couple of videos up there now where he is trying to manage all 3 stages with a bunch of different decks by himself. So, if you're interested, go check it out.
I primarily play this game solo. I just recently started playing it with multiplayer, and when I play solo, I play true solo, because I feel like this game, there's enough going on trying to manage the board state. Sometimes the board state in this game can get really big, and you miss triggers. I can't imagine trying to play 6 decks all together in epic multiplayer.
Yeah, I tend to play true solo as well. And just for our listeners, what we mean by true solo is we're playing with one deck, just 3 heroes against the scenario. A lot of players do play dual-handed, meaning they play 2 separate decks against the scenario, but it's just one player playing it. And that's a very popular format because with 2 decks, you have 100 cards to deck build with, and you can really have one deck kind of leverage certain aspects. So it's easier to manage rather than trying to cram that all into one deck. But yeah, I'm like you, Rob. I like one deck.
I only really have one deck, and that's the one that actually I brought to the con. It has Aragorn, Arwen, and it also has Glorfindel. And it was basically just a straight quest deck. I didn't really know too much about going into it, so that I'll just bring a quest deck. I think I played it like twice, and then by that time, Colin started handing me decks to play because he's like, "Oh, you gotta try this one. Oh, you gotta try this one." And it was actually really awesome because I got to experience all these great decks. And right now, I'm really digging that Gandalf card. That card seemed pretty awesome. Play with your deck open, like the first card flipped up. Oh man, that was pretty awesome.
Gandalf here is a lot of fun, for sure.
Yeah, he is amazing. Yeah, I brought a couple weird decks because I like building weird decks. So one of them I built was a glowing deck, and the whole purpose of the deck is to absorb damage. So I have cards in there where
You get paid to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I get paid to do it. I want other players to take undefended attacks, and I take all the damage they would receive. And the interesting thing about glowing is every time he gets damaged, he gets a resource. And so I take all these resources and heal up glowing, and if I have extra resources, I give them out if I have leftovers. But I'm just trying to soak up as much attacks as possible. It's a very defensive style play. And then the other deck I brought was a Dunhir deck, which is actually in the core set. And it's all about letting Dunhir attack the staging area. So that's kind of fun. I like hiding the shadows and sniping from a distance every once in a while with him. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, attacking the staging area is a lot of fun.
At least you can attack it with your cards. You don't have to use any dexterity, like clicking or anything.
Yes, I am horrible at dexterity. Yep.
I brought a few decks. I brought my whole card pool with me since we were driving, but I found that because I was like just thinking, well, I'm gonna want to tech, and there's gonna be different stuff I want to try, and the only quest I ended up teching for was Karn Doom, and only a couple of cards really, but I brought I think four decks with me. Primarily, I was playing a Sentinel Spirit Dying deck, which I just absolutely love. I think he's definitely my favorite defender in the game right now, and maybe one of my favorite heroes. I brought a location control deck that also has I can't remember who it is. It's I believe a Sylvan Lore Scout who can attack the staging area, which is a lot of fun. And I brought just an Outlands deck just for the Monosphere achievement for the con. And then a Sylvan deck, which was a lot of fun. It was my first time playing a Sylvan deck, too, and I liked it a lot.
I love Sylvan decks. It's so much fun. I want to elaborate on something Rob mentioned. That was the achievements and how he decided to bring a Monosphere deck. So we mentioned this earlier, we mentioned it here, but I should explain this a little bit more. So on this board of all the quests you have to play, people go and write their team's names or individual names on there when they complete a quest. Kind of fun to see what everyone's playing, what everyone's doing. But next to it, they normally have 2 achievements. And so you can play the quest normally and win and write your name on it. Cool. But if you do these achievements, which tries to do something weird with the deck, normally makes it pretty hard, to be honest. And then you can write your name on that part and go up and get your name entered into the raffles, because during all 3 days at regular intervals they're giving away promos and other stuff for the con, which is really fun. But yeah, it's really cool to try to achieve these weird achievements, and some of them are pretty fun and clever. Like the siege one we already talked about, one achievement was to try to wipe out all those big bosses before they're able to move to the second stage. So that's a really big challenge.
And I think we achieve both achievements for the Siege of Numenos when we played?
I don't remember what the second one was offhand. Do you remember?
I know we achieved 1, and I'm pretty sure we achieved 2, but I don't remember for sure. I tried to pull up a picture of the achievements lists, but I can't find any high fidelity ones anywhere.
Oh, was the second achievement having the city at above a certain health?
Maybe. I think so. And we killed that. We barely took any damage. I think we only got down to the mid-40s by the end of the quest.
Yeah, the first team, when Terrence is part of the first team, and Bairnt and some of the other Austin guys, they were wrecking house with those boss guys coming out. I don't know how they managed.
Nice.
I mean, granted, we were sending them a lot of card draw and resources to help with that, but man, they were doing a good job.
Yeah, I was on the other end, like Bairnt said earlier, and I didn't really get to see or hear about what the FAR team was really doing, which, I'd love to play the quest again and kind of get the different roles.
They were usually just sitting up there trying to figure out any way possible to not have that guy move down, along with trying to keep themselves alive. So like Steve said, we were really just giving them as much resources, make card draws they could get, because we knew if anything started bouncing, it was going to start being really bad news.
I'll just mention real quick that after Friday, we did meet up together, a bunch of us, and we played a game of Marvel Champions. So that was fun to play more living card games, because, we didn't have enough the rest of the day, apparently. So we came back Saturday morning, and one of the cool things that happened Saturday was Caleb Grace and Matt Newman, a couple of the designers for Lord of the Rings living card games, stopped by. So we had a chance to interview them and just chat with them. They're really cool guys. But one of the biggest things that everyone's aiming for Saturday, the climactic quest, was Battle of Karn Doom. This is something we mentioned earlier. A lot of folks regard this as being the most difficult quest in the game. And why we say that is because there is a big bad boss man. And what he does is he will create this big army. All these enemies will come out. And he's got 2 sides to him. On one side, the army stays back, and he winds up giving them what's called shadow cards. And shadow cards are just cards that you take from the bad deck, put them face down next to them, and they normally give them a boost of some kind. Some of them don't do anything, but most of the time that's a boost of bad effects. And so they'll stack up all this huge number of cards, and then he'll eventually flip over to the other side, and this huge horde of army that's fully powered comes smashing down on everyone. And it makes it pretty challenging, because not only do you have to deal with this army that gets built up and comes smashing down on you, but you need to quest through the things and manage the threat. You really have to do the whole shebang while this huge army is attacking you. It is very challenging. But for this particular one, I teamed up with Rob, actually, and I borrowed Colin's deck. So we sat down and we played the 3 of us together, and we actually managed to get through it.
And just barely.
So this was your first play of Karn Doom, right, Rob? What'd you think of it?
It was my first play. I've heard a lot about it, kind of on the peripheries. No one really specifically talking about why it's so difficult, but always that it is extremely difficult. I talked to a few people later on Friday and early on Saturday. One of the things we heard about the quest primarily was, the shadow effects and how much the shadow effects build up. We teched a little bit for it just to include some extra, search. I brought that Sentinel dying deck with me. I teched in Burning Brand and Narvi's Belt to get him to just tank all of those shadow effects, and it worked really well. And then with Colin's deck, you had the support, particularly the threat reduction, which we really needed, because I got to 49 threat at one point in the game. But yeah, it was really fun, really challenging, and what I really liked about it is it really tested your decision making skills because I felt like every round we played, we really had to really think about, what were the best choices for engagements, who to defend with what, and what kind of shadow effects we were willing to let slip through. Because as good as Dine was, I only had so much rating on him, so we still definitely had to take some attacks with shadow effects, and it was such a great game that really highlighted the decision making in the game. Because some people will say that Lord of the Rings the card game is really just about building quests, or excuse me, building decks, and that from that point on it's basically autopilot. But I challenge those players to really think about all of the decisions they're making in every phase of the game, because and it really challenged it, and I really enjoyed the quest.
And just to elaborate a little bit more on some of our listeners may not be familiar with the terminology, but like Sentinel, what that means is you can block for other people. So effectively, what Rob was doing with Dying is to have this huge blocker, and he's just taking all the attacks. And with his Burning Brand, he's able to ignore or cancel those shadow effects, which is a huge boost into surviving this. And so yeah, this is definitely teching for the quest for sure. But this is the hardest quest in the game. You kind of have to do it. So
And we got a little lucky because our mulligans, the game affords everybody one mulligan, and that second or excuse me, the first mulligan that we took, that second hand, it got all of those key cards that we needed to get set up, and we were all set up, I think, by the second round, which really allowed us the board state to get through the quest. But even then, it was pretty much by the skin of your teeth every round, it felt like.
oh, definitely. So Baron, what was your experience with Karn Doom?
My experience with Karn Doom. Well, as far as I could tell, there's this big bad guy that flipped back and forth and caused a lot of mass chaos and death and destruction. But Colin and I were the only two that played. I played with Colin. It was really awesome to play with Colin on this one because he was able to at least kind of point me in directions of what I should be working on and trying to get my deck to be doing against this kind of quest. Because if I was just going in blind, there would have been no way I would have made it through this thing. So I had brought. He had actually. This is the time I'm starting to use that Gandalf deck with Elrond and Villia, and so I was able to get that ring out, get the staff out, the pipe out. So a lot of this stuff was where I was supposed to be. Colin was using Grim Bjorn, and he was doing that. He was doing the Sentinel thing. He was kind of hoping to take a lot of this damage, and of course, all those shadow cards piling upon piling was absolutely out of control. But he was able to boost his character because of every dead eagle. He was able to gain like more power and more defense, so he was able to hold and take a lot more damage. So that was how we kind of were able to get through this quest.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, for listeners, Elrond with Villia, he lets you play your top card of your deck just for free. You do that once around. And with Gandalf, you're able to control your top deck and then see it. So that's for a lot of fun there.
Yeah, that deck was a lot of fun to play. Being able to see what that card was and being able to play it was just huge. I mean, anytime you needed something, you could pull something from your hand back on top of that deck and then use the ring to play it, or you could just use the character itself to quest or to fight or defend, whatever you needed him to do. It was. I lost my third guy almost like immediately. He was gone. It was just a two-person deck at about turn two.
So, was this maybe your favorite deck that you played during your time of the Con of the Ring experiment?
That is a great question. It's definitely up there. I think I like that one, and I also like the shipwright deck that I had tried from Colin. It was very similar to what I think I was trying to do with my deck, but he has such a larger card pool to pull from that I think that was more where I was trying to go. So it's kind of cool to build this kind of neat questing deck that still could do other things on top of that, which mine kind of lacked in that aspect. There wasn't a lot of other things it could really do. So it was kind of cool to see where my deck could evolve into. And it was also cool to see all these other decks out there, like the Grim Bjorn deck. I would have never thought anything like that. I didn't even know anything like that existed, let alone being able to build something like that. So it was really cool to see that. Plus the other people we're playing with, like uh, Terrence and the other guys all had their own decks too, and they were showing off kind of what these decks could do and where they're coming from when they thought of building them. So it's just so neat to see what is possible in this game. There's just so much. Myself, I own the first cycle and two core boxes, and that's it. And I can't just, I can, there's just, the amount of stuff is just astronomical that you could even think of doing with this game.
Oh, for sure. I've been playing it for I don't know how many years now. more than 300 plays, and I still am finding new concepts to explore.
Yeah, and the game is going to be taking a hiatus shortly, but the card pool is so large, and I feel like we really have so many deck archetypes that are just super fun to play, and I'm always exploring new ideas. And then contracts are totally changing the way I'm thinking about decks like tremendously, and I'm really excited to see, you know, just how much they're going to change the game.
So, what are these contracts you speak of?
So contracts are a new thing introduced in the most current cycle of the game, and they're fundamentally breaking and changing the ways you can build a deck. So we only have two that we know about right now, and so far both of these contracts are cards that tell you certain restrictions that you place on building your deck and a certain goal to achieve playing the deck, and then once that goal is achieved, your deck gains some sort of boost. Like, for instance, the Fellowship contract is you're only allowed to include unique allies in your deck, and then once you have played 9 unique characters, including your heroes, then they all get boosted. And then the other contract that we know about, Fourth Three Hunters, is you cannot play any allies, but you're allowed more restricted attachments than you would normally be allowed. And then once you've achieved so many attachments on your heroes, then they all get boosted and can get inherent healing effects. And so these contracts are, like I said, they're breaking and changing the ways you can even build your decks at all, which are just, opening up so much space to explore.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm very excited to see what they take this. It's fun to have some goal you can trigger in the middle of the game to get a boost of it, because
Definitely. It's almost like a mini achievement.
exactly. Yeah, and normally how I like to build decks, I like to find some card I haven't used before or haven't seen work effectively, and I try to build a deck around making that card or that concept the best it can be. Whether it's a hero or some random event card, whatever it has to be, that's what I like doing. And so taking that same idea and applying it to this mini goal in the middle of the game, it very much aligns with how I like to build.
Definitely.
The other thing that's really awesome about attending Con of the Rings is the swag. So normally Saturday they'll pause play for a little bit, and they'll give away some cool custom swag for everyone who attends. And this year they made these really awesome deck boxes. They're like a wood deck box. There's a light colored wood color one and a black one. With the black ones for like your bad encounter deck, and the light wood ones for your player deck. And it's awesome artwork on it. Really, really cool. Really impressed with what they did this year. And honestly, every year they tend to have really good swag. And they also gave away first player tokens with it too.
Yeah, this game doesn't have a lot of organized play support from FFG. So a lot of the players, especially the newer ones that have only joined the game in the last couple of years, don't have that kind of extra to bling up their game that players of other FFG games have. So it's really awesome when community members kind of go the extra mile to provide play mats, deck boxes, tokens, so forth.
Oh, definitely. And it's fun to see at Con of the Rings too. A lot of these people have been playing the game for a while, and so they've collected a lot of the swag. And you look across the table, and like everyone has just custom everything laid out. It's really, really cool to see.
And so many major community contributors will bring their own stuff that they just made and will just hand out too, like alt arts and tokens, etc. And that's really great to see too.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, call me a materialist, but when I'm playing a game, especially solo, I want to immerse myself as much as I can, and every like addition that I can make to achieve that is worth it to me. From the tactility of the tokens to the playmat I'm playing on, right?
I totally agree with you. That's it does bring out the game a little bit more than just seeing it on a table with just some little cardboard on it.
And so other things that happened Saturday was the group photo, which is always fun to do, and some trivia, which is it's always based upon Lord of the Rings card game. It's fun to see what your knowledge base is. They always has fun questions. Yeah, it's just a good time. And then towards the end of Saturday, people were transitioning out of the Agmar cycle, the spooky haunted cycle, into a sailing cycle. And I didn't play any of these specifically because we were focused on other games at the time, other parts of the quest. But I know, Rob, you played this, right?
yeah, I played a couple from the Dream Chaser cycle, and it's one of my favorite cycles in the game, maybe my favorite altogether. They just really nailed, what you can do with the base mechanics and how you can make it different. And the theme for that cycle is sailing, and it's a remarkable like how little you can do with a card game to capture different themes and actually make it feel like you and your group is sailing a fleet of ships and getting boarded by pirates, and it's just a blast.
I was pretty spellbound when I first heard this announced. Like, wait, we're taking this Lord of the Rings living card game, which has always been like people on foot or on horseback or whatever, going around the land, a bunch of land, and going on adventures, right? And then they're like, wait a second, we're going sailing now. How is this going to work? And you're totally right. They did. They made this thing actually work, and you feel like you're on a boat. You have to navigate and worry about waters, and there's pirates are boarding you, and you have to take down their ships. It's a really awesome cycle.
And it's amazing because it's still definitely the Lord of the Rings card game mechanics.
Yes.
They're not really changing anything, but what they're able to achieve, with just some quest setup and counter decks, right? It's remarkable.
Is this one of their newer sets that they're? Is this like the latest? What do you call it? Cycle that they've created?
It's their fourth most recent,
Okay.
if you include the current one. So it's at least 3 or 4 years old, I feel like, at this point.
Yeah, it's not new anymore, but I think this is a really good example of what makes, well, not just Lord of the Rings living card game great, but like LCGs in general great, because they do this for really the other LCGs too in various forms, where they could take this, base system and apply these interesting scenarios and predicaments to really make the game shine.
Definitely. I'm really excited to see what they do with Marvel Champions in that regard also.
Oh, very true. I'm super excited to see what that comes.
You know, once upon a time, the Star Wars LCG was going to be a co-op game, and I'd still love to see that. And I feel like the Dream Chaser cycle is a great example of how they could institute starships.
Oh, definitely. So yeah, and then Saturday night we went back to Colin's place and we played Project Elite, which is a game that's been on my bucket list to play for a while because Colin loves that game. So this is a real-time miniature moving dice checker, just fun tower defense game. Yeah, it's my actually second time playing it, to be honest, but my first time playing it was not a very good experience. I don't know if we knew the rules very well, and it was difficult to get through. But Colin did a good job teaching it, and yeah, I had fun with this one.
I really enjoyed it as well. It was a really good time to play that kind of game because we just played how many hours of Lord of the Rings for 2 days straight to be able to sit down and just be like, all right, just roll your dice real fast, run around, kill some aliens, try not to get killed. Okay, go! Roar! And we just roared, and it was just a lot of fun. We laughed and we threw these dice around. I had a really good time doing that one.
Oh yeah, that was a great break from the the depth of trying to rack your brain on Lord of the Rings. Very true. And then I guess for Sunday, for me, unfortunately, I had to take a flight to Pennsylvania for a work trip. So that kind of ended my trip. But what did you guys do?
So there was an after party Saturday night, which was just it was at a local bar and grill. Everybody met up, just having drinks, eating food, kind of talking with each other, chatting with each other, getting to meet some of the community members, and it was just a really good time, a really good way to decompress after the 2 days of gaming. And we were playing a really fun just kind of party game where the people who organized the Count of the Rings had this game where there were stickers, and they would put a name of a character or like a key phrase or a location from the Lord of the Rings, and they put it on your back, right? And then you'd have to ask yes or no questions to everyone around you to figure out like who you were, what you were, and that was really fun to kind of just in a fun spirit to test your knowledge of the lore.
That sounds awesome. So what did you guys do Sunday?
Well, Sunday I actually didn't get back to the con again. My family life started again, so I did. I had to become dad and husband, so I was actually out of the con on Sunday. So I returned to the world of the living.
What about you, Rob? Could you extend your fun another day?
Yeah, I mean, we started a little bit later on Sunday because the lack of sleep and all of the excitement was starting to catch up with us. But we didn't end up playing the main event quest that day. But we showed up, I think, at like 11 o'clock. played a few more quests with some friends, all Dream Chaser quests. Just kind of took it easier, not worried so much about the achievements, and just more on just like having a fun, relaxing game with some friends before we headed out.
And so, yeah, that kind of wraps up our Con of the Rings experience. I want to know what you guys think. Rob, you first. What do you think of the Con of the Rings and maybe a little bit of Lord of the Rings as it stands today?
In general, like I said, I've got a pretty strong background in competitive gaming and events. I'd go to regionals, and I typically would do pretty well. But I always felt like something was lacking whenever I'd come away from these large events and conventions for competitive games. And Con of the Rings is the first, large event or convention I've gone through for a competitive, or excuse me, for a cooperative game, and it really delivered on the experience that everybody talked about for these other games, but that I never really quite got from them. Just the community's so great, and everyone's there just primarily to have fun, and it's just a blast, and I can't wait for next year to go back.
So you are planning to go back if you can manage it?
Absolutely, it's definitely going to be the number one event for me for gaming next year, even before Gen Con.
Awesome, love to hear it. What about you, Bairnt? What did you think of Con of the Rings?
This was an absolute blast. I had so much fun. More than that, I learned so much about this game. I think a lot more than just playing with one person over and over again. Being able to see like I said before, all these different card decks, being able to talk to people. I was sitting next to people I didn't even know, and then later found out they're big members of this community that know so much about this game. Like, I'd be playing something, people would be point to the card and be like, well, don't let that guy do that, or it could be real bad for him. Like, oh, okay, that's real good to know. I mean, he had so much wealth of information just to tell me about what I was doing. So learning things from all these different players was amazing. Trying all these quests that, of course, I'd never heard of was awesome. That siege was incredible. Just looking back and forth at me and Steve, we were going, Steve, are we going to make it through this? I don't know. We'll give it a shot. It was just so fun. Knowing that each person had their own thing they had to do, and if any of that fell at any time, it could just spell disaster for everybody else. So it just shows how much of a cooperation game this is. So it's just, I had a blast. I'm going back next year. I hope that I get to spend the time with you guys because it was so much fun to do.
Wow. I'm glad to hear that because I was a little worried that you play, 2 games of this and went to a con. So the fact that you're willing to come back in another year is an awesome thing to hear.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the community itself. If this community was kind of a bummer community, I don't know how much fun you could have just playing it. But the community, like we've said, just talks to each other. They share things with each other. They're all excited for this game, and so that gets me excited. If you haven't noticed, I kind of get excited playing games. So if everybody else is excited, I get excited, and it's just so much fun to keep on going.
Yeah, I echo your guys' thoughts too. The community is what really makes this game or this convention shine. Like, everyone's super friendly. They're very knowledgeable about the game for the most part. I mean, there's some new players too, but I mean, everyone will come out and help you if you're new to the game. It's not a big deal at all. Seeing the community members there that they are so supportive, they go out and create custom cards and all this swag, then they're willing to just share it with everyone. Great time. I mean, the community holds us up, and the game is fun to boot. I love this convention myself.
I will say that next year I hope to have a custom card to give everyone that I play a game with.
Ooh, can't wait to see it. Is this going to be a surprise, or are you going to leak it here?
Well, I've talked about it a little bit in the channel. I've been doing some custom alt arts, but I did some cosplay, and I was specifically cosplaying as a card. So we'll see if it's a custom alt art or if it's a goofy cosplay alt art of me.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. I love it when they send...
It sounds just sweet. You got to make the card, and I got to see it.
I love it when people have cosplay of cards and they take their pictures and put in the cards. It's amazing every time. Love it. Well, thanks so much, Rob, for joining us, and thanks, Bairnt, for coming back on the episode again to talk about Con of the Rings.
Hey, thank you, Steve. It was a blast to talk with you about my favorite game.
Well, thank you, Steve, for having me. It's always a blast to be here, and I'll be on anytime you need me.
Awesome, guys. Appreciate it. I'd like to thank our Patreon supporters, Brian Franklin, Daniel, and Rich Hickey, all co-op lovers. Thanks so much for your support. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next stop.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the One Stop Co-op Shop podcast. Please check out our YouTube channel at One Stop Co-op Shop. If you want to reach out to us, the best place to talk to us all is on the Slack. See the show notes for details. Also, you can support us on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/onestop. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all next week with another Top 5 list.
I thought it was... Wow, okay, that was fantastic. I only have one deck that I would consider really playing very much. I actually brought it to the con. I brought it, the Aragorn, Arwen, and Glorfindel. Okay, let's try that again so I don't look like a moron. I only have one deck that I really have built right now. It's the same one I kind of brought to the con. It has the Aragorn, Arwen, and Glorfindel. Okay, wow, okay.
Glorfindel.
Glorfindel. All right.
You got it.
I'm welcome. Okay, let's see here.
I love it. That's a blooper.
Right there. Oh, you gotta get the best one. All right. What'd you say? You said, "Oh, thanks for having that." It's always a blast to be here, Steve. How come I can never wrap the show up? It's always just terrible.
Hey, thank you, Steve. It was a blast to talk with you about my favorite game.
So
it's always a blast to meet you. Oh, you know what? Screw it. I'll do it at the end. I can't think of anything. Let me try. All right, here we go. Ready? Here we go. This is for real this time.
Anyway, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next stop.